Hobin Yu, a frail high schooler drowning in debt and humiliation, discovers a mysterious channel offering fame and fortune. With no fighting skills, he takes on brutal street brawls streamed live. But as his views soar and enemies multiply, let's see how far he can survive. The scene opens in a classroom, where Paco goes live and greets his 700,000 NewTube subscribers. Many people have joined him for the broadcast. Paco mentions that during their lunch break that day, one of his classmates and the popular beauty YouTuber, Rumi, will be joining them. As the camera focuses on Rumi, she thanks everyone for watching and greets the viewers. The audience wonders if Paco was collaborating on a video, as he had mentioned the day before. Rumi flaunts her body in a playful and provocative manner, saying that she will do her best, and asks the viewers to be kind to her. The viewers are excited to see her act this way. Paco then asks Rumi to tell everyone what kind of videos she creates. She responds that she makes makeup tutorials for teenagers. Paco asks if she's saying that she has a makeup model for her videos. She nods and explains that she worked hard to apply makeup to a boy, and the camera then pans to the boy. The viewers burst into laughter as they see the boy, who resembles a Joker with thick black makeup around his eyes and a bit of lipstick on his lips. Some even wonder if he's a ghost. Though the boy looks angry, he doesn't show it, silently thinking that if they were going to use him for their video, they at least could have given him a share of the money. The boy's name was Hobin, and Paco calls out to him, asking him to greet the viewers and give a smile. The camera then turned towards Paco, who mentioned that if the viewers hit the subscribe button, he would give away a computer to one lucky subscriber. The viewers started teasing him, urging him to stop showing his back. Hobin thought it was all nonsense, convinced that Paco was just making it up. Paco then turned the camera towards Hobin and asked him to say hi to the viewers. Hobin, feeling forced, muttered a quick hi. After that, Hobin stormed off to the restroom to wipe the makeup off his face, fuming with anger. He thought to himself that he didn't even want to go to school anymore. He reminded himself that everyone had something they were good at, except for him, like Paco, who had 700,000 subscribers, or Rumi, the new beauty YouTuber, who could rely on her looks to make a living. Hobin had neither talent nor good grades, and he certainly didn't have money. He stared at his reflection, feeling as though he had nothing, and he hated that realization. After cleaning his face, Hobin returned to class, still thinking about it all. He couldn't believe that Rumi had put that makeup on the back of his neck as well. It only made him feel more pathetic. Just then, a boy jokingly kicked him and reminded him not to look miserable on camera. He asked Hobin if he was trying to ruin the live stream. Then Snapper continued taunting Hobin, asking if he was a joke. Hobin thought to himself that Snapper was Paco's right-hand man and the cameraman. Snapper was part of a group at school that bullied others, but Hobin knew he couldn't fight back. Snapper calmly told Paco that Hobin had just been looking at him in a way that seemed to frighten him. He teasingly added that Hobin almost wet his pants out of fear. Hobin, though unable to fight back, realized that Snapper was still part of the in-crowd. Paco then asked Hobin why he did something like that, noting that he had been pushing things too far lately. Hobin thought to himself that Snapper had earned his status by agreeing to be Paco's cameraman. He was a school climber, someone who got what he wanted by riding on Paco's coattails, using Paco's power as leverage, but acting as if he were a big deal. Snapper then asked Hobin what he planned to do about it. Hobin thought that Snapper had humiliated him enough with his kicks and taunts, leaving him unable to respond. He realized this was what school life had become. Violence wasn't just physical abuse, but mental and emotional torment as well. After a while, Rumi seemed happy, thanking Paco for helping her earn more than 300,000 yen from their actions. Paco rubbed his leg and commented that Rumi was hot enough to make old men cough up money. Hobin was shocked to hear about the 300,000 yen, thinking that they hadn't even done anything yet still managed to earn that much in such a short time. Paco then asked Rumi if she had received anything in return. She nodded, confirming that it was something she could look forward to. Hobin thought to himself about becoming a YouTuber, and Snapper casually mentioned that he should become one too. Hobin was taken aback by this suggestion. Snapper continued, saying that after all this time behind the camera, it was about time he started his own channel. Hobin realized that everyone seemed to want to be a YouTuber, and for a moment, he found himself thinking the same thing. Snapper turned to Paco, asking what they needed to do to start a NewTube channel. Paco responded, asking if Snapper also wanted to make money, but pointed out that NewTube didn't pay minors. He'd need to register using his parents' NewTube account and bank details. Snapper felt a bit uneasy, as he wasn't allowed to use his parents' account because they had caught him using it for scams in the past, and his grandparents had already passed away. He glanced at Hobin and asked, with a grin, if his mother had dropped dead yet, or if she was still around. He remembered Hobin mentioning earlier that his mother was sick, and then asked Hobin if he could use her account. Hobin was taken aback by Snapper's words. Paco quickly intervened, telling Snapper that he had gone too far and needed to apologize, as his comment was harsh. Snapper asked how his comment was harsh. Paco replied, saying it was crazy to ask Hobin if his mother had dropped dead. He suggested Snapper could have simply asked if Hobin's mother was still alive. Rumi jokingly chimed in, telling Snapper to apologize, but Paco Pago seemed to genuinely wonder whether Hobin's mother was still alive. Snapper, unfazed, thanked Pago for the advice, stating that he couldn't be the only one who was considered trash in the room. He added that everyone who had laughed should apologize as well. Hobin, frustrated, thought to himself that he should punch Snapper right then and there. He felt that Snapper should at least have been placed lower in the social hierarchy, but instead, he was acting like he had the upper hand. Hobin felt sorry for his mother, realizing he couldn't do anything to help her. He felt a sense of betrayal when he remembered how, during his visit to her at the hospital, she had lied to him. She had told him she was well enough to leave but continued to lie in bed, claiming she was holding the fort at home. She had asked him to focus on getting better, and though she couldn't help with the utility bills that month, she told him not to worry about it. Hobin had reassured her that he would take care of it, and insisted that she shouldn't worry about the money. He knew, deep down, that her condition would only worsen if she left the hospital. Now he wondered if he was about to get into another fight. He gave a faint, forced smile, and muttered that what he was even talking about. He wasn't the type to be beaten by anyone, but he knew he was lying to himself, just as he had lied to his mother. After that, Hobin went to the receptionist to pay 300,000 won. The receptionist apologized, saying that he must work hard to pay the fee every time, and asked if Hobin wanted a receipt. Hobin replied that it was fine, and thought to himself how some people didn't make that much during a short live stream, especially over lunchtime. But for him, 300,000 won was the equivalent of an entire week's pay at his part-time job. He worked at a shop, where he often had too many orders to handle and would frequently mess up. He slammed his hand on the table, thinking that he earned 50,000 won after working a full shift after school, and he couldn't believe that Rumi had made 300,000 won for such a short video. It felt like society was to blame, and his life seemed like a never-ending cycle of frustration. A lady named Bomi called out to him, asking where the patties were. Hobin felt a pang of regret for all the things he had just thought, but he quickly answered, telling her that the patties were in the freezer and she should look carefully for them. She thanked him for the help. Another boy nearby overheard and said he knew where the patties were, offering to go with her. Bomi replied that it was fine, but another boy chimed in, volunteering to get them for her. On the other hand, Hobin was flustered. He had finally managed to talk to Bomi, the prettiest girl at the store. She had greeted the customers and taken their orders with a smile. Hobin thought to himself that just looking at her made him happy. Just then, Paco appeared, doing a live stream and asking how everyone was doing. He mentioned that he was currently at McDonald's. Hobin was shocked to see him there and realized that Snapper was with him as well. Hobin wondered if they had come to film a mukbang video. A few of the customers recognized Paco and were curious about what he was filming. Paco explained that he was doing a challenge. Hobin was intrigued but didn't want to be recognized, so he hid behind the counter. Paco continued, saying that the mission for the day was to find the hottie at McDonald's. He had followed the rumors and received tips from his viewers before showing up. He then moved the camera toward Bomi, complimenting her by saying she looked gorgeous, acted exaggeratedly, asking for the super-duper burger, and teasing her by saying if he didn't get a burger that looked exactly like the one in the picture, she would have to give him her number. Snapper, meanwhile, tried to position the camera so that only Pago's back was visible on screen, claiming it was the best angle. Pago then told Bomi that the Whopper needed to be grilled. He thought to himself that no one had given him any information. He had just come there to get her number because she was so pretty. He quickly apologized, saying he didn't want to do it, but his subscribers had instincts that led him to act this way. He thought there was no way they could make a Whopper in 30 seconds, as there were over 10 ingredients. He jokingly mentioned that if she gave him her number, he would wrap up the video quickly and get her a coffee. He glanced at the other staff, wondering if they were jealous, and if they were, they should start their own channel. One staff member commented that he didn't even have Bomi's number, and that NewTubers were pretty annoying. Another staff member wondered what they should do. Paco thought that he could do whatever he wanted with Bomi, and pretend it was all for content creation. Just then, Hobin came to serve the burger, proudly mentioning that he had even put a flag on the burger, just like in the photo, and added an extra patty on the house. Paco and Snapper were both surprised to see this. Hobin, sweating a lot, said there were plenty of customers behind them, and suggested they just take the burger and step aside. Without waiting for a response, he quickly left. Paco's viewers were also shocked to see that the burger had been made in just 30 seconds, and Paco thought to himself that the boy really knew how to act cool. Hobin thought he was going to get beaten at school again, and wondered why he had done such a thing. The other boys were taunting him, and it seemed like Paco had something up his sleeve. Hobin realized that even if he did something, it wasn't like she was going to acknowledge him for it. Later, as Hobin was making ramen at his house, he thought about how Snapper was probably going to throw another tantrum the next day. He regretted not punching him earlier, and couldn't believe he had let Snapper into his house. Snapper was currently playing a game where he had earned 30,000 won, and someone challenged him to get 30 kills for a 300,000 won prize. Hobin thought that Snapper wanted to string him along, and if he had his way, he would beat Snapper within an inch of his life. He also felt sorry for his mother, who didn't know that Snapper had used her details to open an account. Hobin wondered why Snapper needed to open a bank account and start a NewTube channel using his mother's information. Snapper was making money off his mother's credentials. Hobin thought about the challenge someone had given Snapper and how easily he was making money. He guessed that Snapper had a lot of connections, especially since Paco had also promoted him. However, Hobin figured that maybe Snapper would give him a cut of the money, since it was his mother's account. Snapper had killed around 21 enemies, and Hobin was bringing the ramen over, thinking that he was even cooking for Snapper, so maybe he should have asked first. Hobin had even added extra seasoning for Snapper. Just as he was approaching, Snapper accidentally pulled the wire of the PC, and as Snapper was getting closer to 30 kills, the computer shut off. Snapper turned around, only to find that Hobin, holding the ramen, was about to spill it all over his face. Hobin felt sorry for his mother, knowing that he had ruined the kimchi she had worked so hard to make. He apologized to Snapper, insisting it was a mistake, but Snapper kept complaining, saying he had lost 300,000 won, and demanding Hobin pay him back. Hobin continued to apologize, explaining that it was just an accident. Snapper then asked if Hobin couldn't pay because he was broke. Hobin wondered why he was being beaten up in his own house. Snapper cruelly remarked that it was no wonder Hobin's mother had gotten cancer. Enraged, Hobin threw the kimchi at Snapper's face and punched him fiercely, thinking that it was the first time he had let someone walk all over him. Now getting punched didn't seem like a big deal anymore. After the fight, Hobin sat silently in the dark, reflecting on what had just happened. He found it strange that he hadn't felt any pain during the fight, but now that it was over, his body ached, as if the tension had caught up with him. It felt normal though, as if it was just part of the process. Hobin then looked around at his messy room, thinking about when he would finally finish cleaning it all up. He couldn't afford to throw food away like that. Was he really worrying about money again? Why was he the only one who constantly had to think about it? Every other kid got an allowance and went to cram school to get good grades. He wished he had been born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Then, he wrapped himself in a blanket, muttering that he didn't care anymore and wasn't going to clean up. But lying there, he felt even more pathetic because he had to worry about the electricity bill. As he lay there, morning arrived, and his phone rang. He wondered who would be calling him so early. He had no idea who would be calling at such a time. He answered the phone to find it was Snapper, who angrily demanded to know if he had lost his mind and asked him to delete the video. Hobin wondered where Snapper's house was because all the houses on his street looked the same. Snapper seemed to be taking forever to answer, and then he asked again for Hobin to delete the NewTube video from last night. Hobin thought about the video and explained that the stream had cut out because he had tripped over the cable. Then, Hobin realized that the cable he had tripped over the previous night wasn't the one for the main system, but rather the cable for the monitor. Snapper was currently crying and mentioned that their fight had still been recorded by the camera. Even though the monitor was off, the stream was still live. Hobin was shocked to hear this. Snapper explained that he couldn't delete it himself because it was uploaded to Hobin's mother's account and asked Hobin for the password. Confused, Hobin asked what Snapper was talking about. He hadn't uploaded any videos and had even turned off the power strip to save electricity, so the computer should have shut down. Through his tears, Snapper wondered why Hobin had turned it off, explaining that if the computer shuts down during a live stream, the video was automatically uploaded. Hobin was stunned to hear this. He quickly checked NewTube, thinking there was no way such a failsafe existed. There was no way the video could have been uploaded just because the live stream was turned off. But when he checked, he found the video was indeed there. Their fight had been uploaded, and there were more than 10,000 comments. People had been sharing the link, and Hobin wondered why they had done so. He noticed a lot of comments in Japanese and English, and realized the video had gone viral within a day. He didn't even recognize some of the languages in the comments. He sat there, thinking about how he had gone from being an average loser to becoming a world-famous one. The first thing he needed to do was delete the video before things got any worse, though he suspected it was probably too late. Then, he saw a comment mentioning that the revenue from NewTube would be based on the views of the video. Hobin was shocked and wondered how much money he could be earning from this. He quickly calculated the potential earnings, and when he saw the number of views, he was stunned. He would earn 10 million won. The students in Hobin's class were watching the video, commenting that Hobin had used kimchi as a weapon. They wondered if he was trying to be a kimchi master, but it just made him look like a loser. One student joked that Hobin was fighting with kimchi while Sniper fought with a piece of ramen, calling it a battle between two alphas, and that they must be proud of themselves. Another student sighed, saying it was embarrassing for both their school and their country that the video was going viral worldwide. They wondered if those two would even show up to school after all this, and one of them remarked that if they were in their shoes, they would drop out. Just then, Snapper entered, opening the door and referring to Hobin as the new NewTube star. As everyone laughed at him, Hobin realized they had all seen the video. He now felt like a complete loser because of that one clip. He had put so much effort into sucking up to Paco to become part of the in-crowd, but now he couldn't couldn't allow himself to be humiliated like this. Hobin spotted a boy and decided to kick him, but the boy quickly stood up, sending Snapper stumbling back, and then started punching him. Snapper grunted in pain, realizing that the boy was heavy and stronger than him, so he couldn't move as easily. He looked over at Pago, expecting some help, but Pago just watched as the boy continued to beat him up. But Hobin noticed that Pago was smiling at Snapper, and from his experience of climbing the social ladder, he could tell that Snapper had lost everything. The boy continued to beat him. The scene shifted to the hospital, where Hobin received the hospital bill for the week, 1.2 million won. The receptionist, noticing his distress, hesitantly asked if he would be okay. She mentioned that it seemed like he hadn't even gone to school that day, probably because he was so worried about his mother. She knew that his father was absent and that the family's financial situation was dire, with Hobin being the sole breadwinner. She even felt like she might offer to pay for him. Hobin trembled as he looked at the bill, but he replied that he would take care of it. After handing over the money, he thought about how he still had 7.8 million won left. He wasn't worried about the hospital fees anymore because soon he would be receiving 10 million won. The video he had accidentally uploaded had reached 11 million views, and getting paid per view felt like a dream. As he walked out of the hospital, Hobin wondered if anyone would think he was embarrassed that so many people had seen the video. But in reality, he felt like he had nothing to lose. He was already a loser. Just then, Snapper appeared, crying and angry. He told Hobin that he had made some money from the video, but now he was the one who looked like a loser. Snapper grabbed Hobin, demanding that he give him half of the money, since he was in the video as well, and Hobin had used his likeness. Hobin thought to himself that Snapper had become a social outcast too, which was a shame. Then Hobin kicked Snapper and started beating him, demanding to know why he should give money to Snapper. It was his mother's account. Snapper retorted that he had started the stream. Hobin coldly replied that it was a shame, but it's not his problem. Snapper claimed that his reputation at school was ruined because of Hobin. Hobin thought to himself that he had already fought Snapper once and wasn't scared of him anymore. After the fight, they both sat together, and Hobin asked if Snapper was hurt at all. Snapper pretended to be, but Hobin didn't care. He still wasn't going to give him a single one, and his social climbing days were over. Then, Snapper showed Hobin the video of their last fight, asking if he was sure he wasn't going to pay him. Hobin was shocked to see it. Snapper explained that he had filmed it in secret, and that even though he was angry, he was able to produce quality footage. Enraged, Hobin grabbed Snapper by the collar, asking if he planned to upload another video. He told him to know when to stop. Snapper asked if he was an idiot, and who was going to watch that if we upload it, and people will just say they did it on purpose. Then he asked Hobin about the recording angle, suggesting they join forces rather than fight again, and he liked the money. The next day at school, Pago was live streaming, telling his viewers how surprised he was to learn that two of the boys from the recent viral video were his classmates. His viewers were shocked and eager to see they fight. Pago quickly responded, urging them not to say such things and clarifying that he hadn't made his friends fight. Snapper, however, suspected that Pago was using them as fodder for views since they were currently trending. Hobin, on the other hand, believed they weren't really friends. Pago glared at them both, insisting they simply greet his viewers. Nervously, they both said hello, referring to themselves as the loser duo. Hobin was clearly uncomfortable, and Snapper whispered to him, asking when he planned on doing something about it. Hobin reassured him, telling him to relax, as he knew exactly what needed to be done. Paco continued his broadcast, encouraging his divas to like and subscribe, promising that he would be raffling off a top-of-the-line computer. Suddenly, Hobin shouted that it was all a lie, that Pago was pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. There was no raffle, no winner. It was all fake. Hobin realized that Paco was only pretending to offer the computer giveaway. He thought of Snapper, who had suggested they team up to make money. He couldn't believe what Snapper had said. Later, Heighton reflected on the events of the previous evening, recalling Snapper's offer. Snapper had moved toward Hobin, proposing that they join forces, with Snapper promising to help him make a fortune. Hobin wondered if he was going to make more money. He asked Snapper if he didn't think they could go viral again with their next fight video. Snapper, who was behind the viral Pago video, made it clear that Hobin should be grateful for his offer of help. Snapper pointed out that Hobin still wasn't getting paid, and questioned if Hobin even understood how complicated the process was. He would first need to be evaluated before they could get paid. Hobin was confused by the mention of an evaluation. They had to be evaluated in order to get paid? Snapper continued, asking if Hobin really thought he could come up with a new contract on his own. He questioned whether Hobin believed the same type of content that had landed in his lap would work again. Who would record him? Who would come up with the ideas? And, most importantly, who would edit the videos or direct him? Snapper then explained that Pago's 700,000 subscribers weren't a result of talent alone. It was thanks to careful planning and the camera work that Snapper had orchestrated. Now, Snapper was offering to be Hobin's NewTube director, with Hobin's only job being to perform. Snapper urged Hobin to trust him, promising that they would both become rich together. As Hobin considered this, Snapper sensed that he was starting to fall for the offer. Snapper knew he could climb the ranks if he played his cards right and used Hobin's channel effectively. Then, Hobin asked how the money would be split. Snapper thought for a moment and replied that he would become a top NewTuber's director, finally shedding the label of loser. Snapper mentioned that he would handle all the work, but he'd make it look like 90% of the credit was his, with only 10% going to Hobin. After all, they were friends. He believed that this would help him get back into the in crowd, with Hobin in front of the camera, essentially serving as Snapper's meal ticket. Hobin, however, reacted by flipping him the middle finger and rejecting the offer. He asked why he would agree to just 10%, especially when he was the one in front of the camera. He also questioned the meaning of their friendship. Snapper was shocked. This wasn't how he had expected things to go, and he couldn't believe Hobin was turning him down. Hobin suggested Snapper should stick to making burgers and walked away. Snapper called out to him, realizing that he had no choice but to partner with Hobin if he wanted to avoid staying a loser. So, he offered Hobin 60%, with Snapper taking 40%. But Hobin didn't respond. Snapper, desperate, thought he had to make a choice: remain a loser, or rise from the ashes as a top NewTuber's director. He upped the offer to 80% for Hobin, with Snapper taking only 20%. Still, Hobin remained silent. Finally, Snapper, with one last attempt, offered 90% to Hobin, and kept only 10% for himself. Hobin stopped and turned around, asking what he needed to do, and to let him hear Snapper's great idea. Snapper thought to himself that Hobin was just a fool. Then, Snapper explained the type of content they would create: videos calling out bullies and exposing their lives. The scene returned to the present, where Hobin pointed at Paco, accusing him of pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. He revealed that the whole computer giveaway was a complete lie. Paco might pretend to be nice in front of the camera, but when the cameras were off, he was just a bully. Hobin wondered if Paco himself was scared of the truth, but reminded everyone that Paco had kicked him at school. If Hobin could get paid for being beaten up, he'd allow it. Hobin took off his shirt to reveal the injuries on his body, explaining that Paco was responsible for all of them. He then urged the viewers to visit his NewTube channel for more details. Other students, witnessing the scene, wondered if Hobin was scared of what Paco would do next. Snapper, however, was impressed. He thought Hobin was doing great, and together they would steal Paco's subscribers, bringing them to their channel. Hobin's performance was top-notch, and it seemed like he was desperate for the money. As the students watched, they saw Paco's face and started telling Hobin that he was really smashing it. They pointed out Paco's panicked expression, but Paco just laughed, asking Hobin what he thought he was going to do. The stream had already ended because Hobin's battery had died. Hobin was stunned, and Paco taunted him, suggesting that Hobin had been planning something nasty. He slapped Hobin, asking if he was trying to expose Paco. Paco then added that Hobin would get revenge for everything that had been done to him. Hobin simply glared at Snapper. Snapper was shocked, wondering why Hobin was looking that way. He quickly thought to himself that Hobin shouldn't be looking there because they were recording everything on camera, streaming live. This was amazing. It meant they were about to gain a lot of subscribers. As Paco continued to hit Hobin, the viewers began to wonder if Paco was really the same person they saw on camera, or if he was just faking it. Snapper wondered if Hobin thought they were stupid enough to call him out during their own broadcast, but Snapper had already started streaming on their channel. The title of the stream was Paco, the NewTuber with 700,000 subscribers, was actually a piece of trash. Snapper didn't need to worry about the cameraman because the star of the show, Hobin, needed to focus on performing for the camera. All they had to do was let Paco hand Hobin his ash so they could make money from the drama. Hobin, looking at Snapper, wondered if he would really get rich from being beaten up like this. He thought about the debt his family was in and how tired he was of making pocket change. Their channel needed to become famous if he was going to make big money. He realized that losers always got beaten up, but that wouldn't entertain the viewers. To make interesting content on NewTube, they needed to provoke the audience. A loser picking a fight with a bully would be perfect. As Hobin stood his ground, ready to fight, Paco grew angrier, taunting Hobin and asking if he was really going to take a swing at him. Hobin remembered the past, when Paco had disrespected his mother, and that triggered the fight. All the students were shocked to hear Hobin's words and whispered to each other, wondering if he had lost his mind. Snapper was bewildered by what Hobin was doing. Snapper couldn't believe Hobin had actually picked a fight with Paco. The viewers, however, were intrigued eagerly sharing the link to the video and watching the chaos unfold. Snapper thought there was no turning back now. Hobin had no choice but to fight, and he didn't seem scared. Snapper had no idea what was going through Hobin's mind. Hobin, on the other hand, wondered why no one was intervening. They didn't just have to watch. They could stop the fight, but none of them moved to break it up. With all eyes on him, Hobin couldn't take back what he had said. Paco was looking even more terrifying now, and Hobin felt the urge to beg for mercy. He looked up at Paco, whose thick neck was like a tree trunk, muscles bulging and tattoos spreading across his skin, all of it making him seem like an unstoppable force. Hobin couldn't understand why Paco had both strength and intimidating presence. His hands were massive, veins popping as if ready to burst, in stark contrast to Hobin, whose body felt small and puny like a shrimp. Fear set in as Hobin's fists and legs shook uncontrollably. Wondering what he should do next, Hobin thought back to the action movies he had watched. In those films, the hero often brought down their opponent with a tackle, or perhaps he should just apologize. The thought crossed his mind. Would it be possible to turn back time? Paco sneered, mentioning that it was no wonder Hobin's mother had gotten cancer. Hearing this, Hobin immediately lunged forward, grabbing Paco's leg and trying to push him back. This surprised everyone around them. The viewers laughed, seeing that Hobin couldn't even budge Paco an inch. Snapper thought to himself that Hobin was too small to pull that off, standing only 5 feet tall and weighing around 110 pounds. Did he really think he could tackle someone over 6 feet tall and weighing 180 pounds? Paco stopped him effortlessly by grabbing Hobin's jeans, telling him it was foolish to charge all of a sudden, especially when his own mother was in the hospital. Then, with a smirk, Paco lifted Hobin and warned that he would make sure Hobin was placed in the bed next to his mother. Without another word, Paco slammed Hobin to the floor. The others burst into laughter, remarking how loud the impact was and how size truly mattered in a fight. They all agreed Hobin wouldn't be getting up from that. Snapper grimaced, thinking that surely Hobin was in pain. The viewers were shocked, and many wondered if Hobin's actions were part of some scripted stunt. Lying on the ground, Hobin thought to himself that he hadn't realized how important size was in a fight. He recalled his previous fight with Snapper, which felt like child's play in comparison. But with Paco, this was the real deal. He knew he was done for. Whatever he tried, it was all a waste. Paco, looking down at Hobin, scoffed and asked if he thought it was over. He said that it was just the beginning. Then, he sat on top of Hobin, preparing to punch him again. He added that he wasn't done with him yet. Hobin's eyes widened in shock as the words sank in. As Paco raised his hand to punch Hobin, a voice called out from behind him. The boy told Paco that he was trying to sleep there. Paco, fuming with anger, turned to see who had the audacity to speak to him like that. The boy raised his head, unfazed, and asked that what Paco said. Paco's expression shifted immediately. The moment he saw the boy, a flicker of fear crossed his face. The students who had been watching were equally confused, wondering who this new kid was. Someone murmured that it was Munseong Kim, the rising MMA star of Korea. Hobin, still lying on the ground, realized that these two were both alpha males, but there was a significant difference in their levels. Kim wasn't just any alpha. He was the kind that devoured other alphas for breakfast. Paco, who was used to dominating everyone around him, immediately recognized he had no choice but to back down in front of someone stronger. Kim's mere presence changed the atmosphere in the room. His few words had shifted everything, leaving a sense of awe in the air. Hobin couldn't help but feel jealous. What must it be like to be someone like that? Someone with so much power and respect. He realized he would never be that person, and the thought stung. Kim calmly said that he was going to sleep now, as if the situation had never escalated. The other students were left in stunned silence, while Snapper observed with an admiring gaze. He thought to himself that Kim had it all: power, fame, and skill. He'd even heard Kim was getting private lessons from a world-class MMA fighter. Paco, clearly scared, quickly retreated. It was clear who held the real power. As the other boys began to leave the scene, Snapper smirked. Despite the brutal beating Hobin had taken, he realized something. Hobin had done something unexpected. He had gained some fans, even if it had been through pain and humiliation. While Hobin might have failed in the fight, he'd somehow managed to win in other ways. In the evening, as Paco turned on his phone and plugged it into the charger, he thought to himself that, finally, he could charge his phone. He couldn't even use the power bank because he had left it at home, and he feared he was going to die from boredom. But he was lucky. His battery died while he was streaming. Just as he was about to be called out by Hobin, wondering what he had been thinking, Paco noticed something strange. As soon as he turned his phone back on, he saw a lot of voicemails. He wondered why so many people were trying to contact him. His eyes widened in shock as he saw 300 messages, and asked himself what was going on. Trembling, he wondered what everyone was reacting to. Suddenly, he froze in disbelief as he saw the reason. The scene shifts to Hobin, who was currently taking a bath. He thought about how he had become the loser in everyone's eyes, but he didn't understand why. After all, it was just a label people had given him. At that moment, however, he felt incredibly awesome, knowing that he had given Paco a taste of his own medicine. Paco's explosive reaction was now trending online. While his phone had been off, Snapper had been live streaming a video, calling him out on NewTube. Hobin didn't expect the video to blow up so much that it would start trending, and he wondered how it had gotten so popular. He considered the possibility that Paco might sue him, but then he thought he could counter-sue for the beating he took, with the video serving as evidence. People began linking the video on various community sites, and the posts quickly spread everywhere, causing his channel to go viral. He thought of more videos and more subscribers, with people from every online community guiding others to his channel. This was only the beginning of Paco's downfall and the rise of the NewTube career of Bango. Hobin believed that the main content of their videos would revolve around fighting. He remembered his conversation with Snapper, who had mentioned a big problem: the length of the videos. Snapper had explained that they earned money through ads, not by the number of views they received on NewTube. People often mistakenly thought they earned money per view, but in reality, the revenue came from ads. To make a lot of money, they needed to create videos of an appropriate length to include plenty of ads. The problem was that they couldn't stay in a fight for more than a minute. Hobin needed to be able to last in the ring for at least 3 minutes, or their NewTube channel would fail. He realized that he had to figure out how to stay in a fight long enough to make it work, but if he couldn't last for at least 3 minutes, people would lose interest. He briefly wondered if he should go to a local gym, but he doubted that spending a short amount of time there would make much of a difference. He then checked the internet, hoping to find tips on how to get better at fighting, thinking that maybe the internet could offer some advice. He found an explanation that shocked him, making him realize that he needed to learn how to fight properly. He then checked NewTube, thinking he could learn best by watching videos on what to do. He wondered if he should search for taekwondo or boxing videos. As he browsed, he came across a Thai bow video and wondered what it was. There were many results, but none of them seemed useful for a real fight, or they were too complicated for a beginner like him. Real life wasn't like the martial arts moves shown in movies. He began to wonder what he had to search for to find what he really needed. Realizing that he would have to teach himself how to fight, he decided to search for ways to teach himself to fight. After some searching, he found a channel with a strange name and 0 subscribers. Despite this, there were videos, and he couldn't understand who would search for a channel with such a name. He wondered if he was the first to discover it, thinking someone had probably created it by mistake and doubted there were many videos. But when he checked, there were indeed many videos, and it seemed like the person had put a lot of effort into creating them. Hobin wondered why this person was uploading videos with no views. He speculated that these videos might be about learning how to fight, so he decided to check them out. As he clicked on one of the videos, a man appeared wearing a chicken mask. Hobin had no idea at that time that the obscure channel, created by a foreigner, would change his life forever. The man asked if they wanted to win a fight with ease, avoid getting beaten up in front of others, and protect themselves if someone started a fight with them. Before diving into the fighting techniques, he reminded them of the mindset he had taught them last time. When fighting, their mindset should be to never lose their cool. This was their first lesson, so they needed to keep it in mind at all times. If they wanted to use the techniques he would teach them, but couldn't control their emotions, their feelings would take over, preventing them from thinking clearly during a fight. In other words, if they could make their opponent lose control, it would be much easier to defeat them. Hobin wondered what this was all about and whether the man was serious. The man went on to say that the first technique he would teach them was how to get hit without it hurting. Hobin was shocked and wondered what this could possibly mean. It sounded like a scam. There's no way it could be that easy. If it were true, anyone would be able to do it. Hobin stood up from his computer, thinking that he should have known better and now needed to get to work, but the video kept playing. The man continued explaining how to get hit without feeling pain, urging them to keep teaching themselves how to fight until the next lesson. The scene shifts to the city streets at night, where a few pretty girls spotted Paco. Paco approached the girls and asked if they wanted to be part of his video, as he was currently interviewing pretty girls. People recognized him as the NewTuber who had been cancelled. He had gotten cancelled after starting a live stream, realizing that his call-out video was trending online, and it seemed like he was regaining public sentiment. However, even his apology video was seen as fake. Along with the fake laptop raffle he had exposed, people began digging into other things he had faked. Someone even created a website that tracked how many followers Paco was losing in real time. People were excitedly watching the number drop, as if counting down to a major event. Paco hit the streets, trying to win back viewers, but people no longer took him seriously. They mocked him, and he was no longer the rising star he once was. As Paco's career imploded, a new YouTuber was on the rise, Hobin. Hobin changed the name of his channel to Viral Hit, and everyone was eagerly anticipating his videos. There was no turning back for him now. Hobin arrived at his workplace and told his superiors that he was quitting. His superior was surprised to hear that. Hobin thought to himself that he could no longer pay his mother's hospital bills with his part-time job. He handed the man his resignation, including the hours he had worked that day. In the staff room, the other employees were curious about Hobin quitting. A girl mentioned that Hobin was a demon at flipping burgers. Another person said that Hobin was now a YouTuber. Someone else mentioned that they saw Hobin telling the manager he was quitting. They even saw him live streaming with his shirt off, and he was so thin, like a rake. They wondered how he could leave his house after everything that happened. It was so low to make money by calling out others, no matter how desperate he was. Hobin expected that kind of reaction, and had mentally prepared for it. Someone else said they checked out Hobin's channel, and that he looked desperate, clearly wanting more views. They wondered if he wanted the whole world to know he was a loser. Hobin thought that was still humiliating, and wondered if Bomi had seen his videos as well. They joked about how hilarious it was, maybe even speculating that he had called them out in the videos. Hobin thought that he had come in before she started her shift on purpose. He needed to get out of there before she arrived. The manager asked if Hobin thought he was too good for this kind of work now that he was famous, desperate for attention. The manager remarked that it must be nice to be popular, and suggested that maybe Hobin should start his own NewTube channel. Hobin became angry upon hearing their comments, glaring at them as they continued to make fun of him. He thought to himself that they had no idea what he was going through. Just then, Bomi approached him, telling him that what he did was really cool. She admitted that she didn't know Pago was like that, and had only discovered his true nature thanks to Hobin's video. She appreciated him for exposing it. Bomi then handed him her phone, asking for his number so she could keep in touch with him now that he was quitting. Everyone in the room was shocked to see this. She smiled and mentioned that she would text him soon. The manager and the male employees felt jealous. Hobin was shocked and couldn't believe what had just happened. The next day at school, Hobin was feeling joyous while chatting with Bomi. He kept thinking about how surprised everyone was when Bomi asked for his number. It made him feel happy. Snapper saw Hobin smiling and asked, "Why are you acting so crazy?" Hobin lied and said, "I'm just looking at content." But Snapper knew he wasn't telling the truth. Snapper then asked, "How does it feel to have 100,000 subscribers? You're the first regular person to do it with just 2 videos. Even famous people can't do that." He then asked, "Have you figured out how to last 3 minutes in a fight?" Hobin didn't want to tell Snapper he was learning from strange videos, so he said, "I'm still thinking about it." Snapper got angry hearing that answer, and warned Hobin if he want to make money, he should take it seriously. While they were talking, Rumi, who had now gained 15,000 subscribers now, walked over with a flirty smile, and said, "Let's do a collab." Hobin made a silly expression. At that moment, Snapper saw a chance and asked, "Do you have a female cameraman? Then we can all go on a double date." Suddenly, the door got open. Paco walked in, looking angry. "You're all trying to bring me down, right?" he shouted. Hobin and Snapper froze as Paco walked towards Hobin, taking off his shirt, ready to fight. Paco was looking frustrated and scary. Looking at his face, reminded Hobin of the first lesson that he taught from the How to Fight video he had watched on the Unknown Chicken channel the night before. He began to think of numerous ways to dodge the attack and decided to give it a try. Paco, already standing in front of Hobin, swung his fist toward him. But instead of hitting Hobin directly, his punch missed its target. Hobin stayed calm and didn't move. He realized Paco's actions were exactly what the chicken had talked about. When someone is too emotional, it's harder for them to control their movements. Hobin now understood that the chicken's advice was true. Paco threw another punch, and this time, Hobin braced himself. Instead of panicking, Hobin decided to use the chicken's method to reduce the pain of being hit. But just before Paco's punch could land, he paused, making Hobin confused. He wondered why Paco stopped, and then he came to know that Snapper is standing behind him. Snapper suddenly appeared, and threatened Paco with his camera. Snapper's interruption made Paco stop his punch mid-air. Annoyed, but not wanting to make things worse in front of the camera, Paco angrily looked at Hobin and Snapper. He warns them that he would take his revenge before he angrily goes out of the classroom. Hobin felt relieved, but also had goosebumps. He never imagined that advice from a chicken-headed person on a video could actually work. He also found himself wondering who this mysterious chicken really was. Later that day, Hobin waited in a park to meet Snapper. They needed to discuss new ideas for their NewTube content. Hobin, however, was feeling frustrated. He found it very difficult to create fighting content if everything had to be staged. As he sat in the park, his mind wandered, and he decided to message Bomi to take his mind off things. Just chatting with her made him happy. Bomi mentioned that she was tired of texting and preferred hearing Hobin's voice directly. She even suggested calling him. Hobin's lonely heart was overjoyed at her words, and he prepared to call her. Before Hobin could make the call, a couple approached him. They claimed to be fans of his channel and asked to take a picture with him. Feeling happy, Hobin agreed. But instead of taking a picture, the couple dragged him into an alley and began to demand money. They believed Hobin was earning a lot through his videos. They searched his pockets, even boxers too, but found nothing. Just as the situation grew tense, Snapper appeared, running toward them. Hobin felt a moment of hope, thinking Snapper had come to rescue him. But Snapper, being weak, was easily overpowered and ended up lied back on the ground after getting defeated. The couple then decided to take Hobin's phone and even took Snapper's clothes before leaving. Hobin begged them to return his phone, but they ignored him. Hobin was devastated. His phone contained Bomi's number, and now it was gone. He wanted to report the couple to the police, but Snapper had other ideas. Snapper, holding his camera, reminded Hobin that this entire incident was being live-streamed. Their viewers were laughing at the stupidity of the situation. Snapper suggested that Hobin confront the couple to get his phone back. He believed it would increase their viewership as well. Hobin first hesitated, but then he agreed, realizing he had no other option. The viewers, now excited by the drama, began to cheer Hobin as he followed the couple to a karaoke bar. After a while, when Hobin entered, he spotted the guy holding a microphone in his right hand. Hobin remembered another lesson from the chicken's tutorial video. People tend to punch with their dominant hand. This meant the guy would likely punch with his right hand, making it easier for Hobin to predict and dodge his moves. When the guy noticed Hobin, he got up, ready to fight. Hobin positioned himself slightly to the left of the guy, just as the chicken guy had advised. As the guy swung his fist, Hobin moved his forehead toward the punch. This might seem strange, but the chicken's video had explained that absorbing a punch early, before it gains full momentum, reduces its impact. True to the advice, the punch didn't hurt Hobin much. Snapper as well as the viewers were shocked by Hobin's strange technique. The guy, however, thought Hobin enjoyed being hit and swung another punch at him, but this time aiming for Hobin's head. To his surprise, Hobin kept moving his head, making it difficult for the guy to land a perfect hit. Hobin remembered another saying of Chicken Guy. He had explained that ordinary people struggles to adjust their punches to a constantly moving target. Using this strategy, Hobin successfully avoided most of the punches. Even when a punch did land, it didn't hurt much because Hobin knew how to reduce the effect. The viewers watching the live stream were amazed, as well as was Snapper. However, the guy began to tire. Hobin took the moment as a great opportunity and shouted, "Give me back my phone! I need to chat with Bomi!" Frustrated, the guy prepared himself to fight again, but Hobin again dodged effortlessly. The viewers continued to cheer for Hobin. They are impressed by his quick thinking and skill. However, as the fight continued, the audience began to lose interest. Even the bad guy's girlfriend, who had been watching, got bored and started asking Snapper about how to start her own NewTube channel. After a while, Hobin also began regretting not watching more of the how to fight videos. At that moment, he had no idea how to fight back, so he kept struggling without much success. The fight was going on, but fewer and fewer people were watching the live stream. Then, one viewer left a comment that caught Snapper's attention. The viewer said Hobin would win this fight. Snapper was surprised because Hobin was clearly losing in front of him. Snapper knows that guy. He was the same person who once called Moonsong Korea's rising star. Then left another comment, telling everyone to focus on the exuberance fist. Everyone noticed the guy's fist. It was red and swollen. The chicken's video had explained that even punching a bag could make fists swell, especially when they hit something hard like a skull. Although Hobin's forehead had also swollen, it seemed the other guy was in worse condition. He was clearly in pain, rolling on the floor while holding his hands. Taking advantage of the situation, Hobin instantly grabbed his phone back. It wasn't a clean victory though. His forehead throbbed from the punches. Despite the pain, he quickly checked his phone. He couldn't wait to chat with Bomi, but when he opened the chat, he froze, unsure of what to say. Meanwhile, the livestream continued. Viewers flooded the comments, with some offering tips on how Hobin should talk to Bomi, while others told Snapper to stop filming. Despite this, everyone seemed to enjoy the live stream. Snapper eventually ended the stream, and the video immediately gained views. Within a week, the video had over 1.1 million views, and Hobin's last 4 videos collectively reached 25.7 million views. Their channel earned more than 20 million won in revenue. Hobin and Snapper were happy when they withdrew the money. Snapper joked about how lucky they were that their videos hadn't been hit with a yellow label. Hobin did not know about the yellow label, so Snapper explained him that a yellow label meant no money because of inappropriate content, such as violence or harsh language. If it got worse, they might even get a red label, which could even destroy the channel. After that, Hobin saw a livestream featuring Rumi, who now had over 70,000 subscribers. She was broadcasting outside a shop, and her fans pointed out a stain on her clothes. While checking herself in the store window, she spotted Hobin inside the shop. She decided to go to them, but Snapper realized Rumi was trying to steal Hobin's subscribers, grabbed Hobin, and the two ran away. After a long run, they managed to escape from Rumi. As they calmed down, Hobin noticed a dress in the store that caught his eye. He wanted to buy it, thinking it would cost around 400,000 won. However, he was shocked to see the price tag. The dress was worth 1.4 million won. Deciding it was too expensive, he gave up on the idea. But as they were leaving, Snapper surprised Hobin by buying the dress in cash. Hobin couldn't believe it. He began to suspect that Snapper might be a rich kid. Snapper turned to Hobin and asked if he wasn't going to buy anything. He reminded Hobin that they were content creators now and needed to think about their image. Hobin hesitated, noticing how everything in the shop felt too expensive for him. Even though he had made over 20 million won, he didn't want to waste money. Suddenly, a notification popped up on his phone. After checking it, Hobin made a quick decision and bought the 1.4 million won dress he had admired earlier. On the street, people noticed Hobin's new branded clothes. However, they suspected his outfit was fake since they didn't think a high school student could afford real luxury items. Hobin mentioned he left the price tag on, just in case he decided to return the clothes. While walking, Hobin got a message asking him to come to a place that turned out to be full of couples on dates. This made him nervous. To calm himself, he started a live stream and greeted his viewers. Unfortunately, the comments weren't kind. People mocked him, calling him a kid who made money by fighting, crazy for fame, and an embarrassment to his classmates. The harsh words made Hobin feel sad, and he looked down, realizing fame wasn't as glamorous as he had imagined. Still, a few viewers encouraged him, and Hobin thanked them for their support. Suddenly, a girl's voice interrupted him. She said, "Wow, I'm your fan." Hobin thought she was talking to him, but unfortunately it turned out that she was talking to Ji-woon, another content creator with 70,000 viewers. The girl admired Ji-woon's good looks, while Hobin's male viewers rallied behind him, promising to attack Ji-woon's channel. However, they soon returned, apologizing because they couldn't compete with Ji-woon's female fans. Ji-woon's live stream had a theme called Finding a Girlfriend. He found a beautiful girl nearby and approached her, introducing himself and asking for a moment of her time. He thought having her on his live stream would excite his viewers. However, to his surprise, the girl politely refused, saying she was waiting for her boyfriend. Curious, Ji-woon asked, "Who's your boyfriend?" The girl smiled and pointed at Hobin. It was Bomi. Hobin froze in shock as Bomi walked up to him and said, "Our outfits match like a couple's." Hobin's face turned red with embarrassment. Meanwhile, the live stream viewers were exploding with anger and confusion. For them it was hard to believe that a guy like Hobin already had a girlfriend. Hobin used to jealous of the popular kids at school. He wasn't strong, he wasn't smart, and he wasn't rich as well. He was just a skinny and shy guy who couldn't do sports, and he didn't fit in with the people. He felt inferior because of this. He often looked at people like Paco and wished he could be more like him. Paco was good at fighting and everyone respected him. At school it seemed like the strong people ruled, while the weak had to keep their heads down. Hobin felt like he would always be weak. Paco was tough, confident, and never seemed afraid. But even Paco had his weaknesses. In front of Moonsong, Paco became weak. Hobin had always looked up to Moonsong because he was strong and confident. Hobin thought Moonsong had everything, and he could never be like him. But now, Hobin didn't feel that jealousy anymore. Things had changed for him since he met Bomi. Hobin no longer needed to be tough or popular. He didn't need to fight or prove anything. All he wanted was to be with Bomi. She made him feel special, and that was enough. That day, while they were walking together, their hands accidentally touched. Bomi immediately apologized, blushing. Hobin, however, was caught up in a fantasy. He imagined that they were married, that he had just come home from work, and Bomi greeted him with an apron. In his fantasy, they already had 2 kids, and the kids ran up to him, calling him Papa. At that time, Hobin quickly snapped back to reality when Bomi asked why he was silent. He said he was just a quiet person. They kept walking, but Hobin couldn't stop thinking about how lucky he was to have Bomi by his side. As they walked, they passed a couple who noticed their matching branded clothes. The couple commented that they looked good together, but also felt bad for Bomi, thinking that a beautiful girl like her shouldn't be with a short guy like Hobin. Hobin heard this and immediately felt embarrassed. He worried that Bomi might be ashamed to wear matching clothes with him. So, Hobin took off his shirt and told the couple, "We're not a couple." Bomi was surprised by his sudden action and stayed silent for a moment. Their food then arrived, and Bomi seemed excited to try it. Hobin, however, didn't feel like talking and answered her questions with short responses. When Bomi asked what they should do after their coffee, he simply said, "Nothing." Bomi tried to keep the conversation going by asking him what he liked. Hobin answered briefly, saying he didn't really like going out. Bomi seemed quiet and looked down. She then stood up and said, "I'll just go home." Hobin was confused. "Why are you leaving? We haven't even eaten yet," he asked. Bomi replied, "I thought it would be fun, but you've just been quiet. I'm sorry if I've disturbed your time." As she walked toward the door, Hobin quickly said, "Are you embarrassed to walk with me?" Bomi turned around, surprised. Hobin quickly added, "This is the first time I've ever been alone with a girl, chatting like this, and even coming to a cafe. I usually just stay home and watch NewTube videos. I didn't like going out before because I didn't have friends. Snapper isn't really my friend. I really wanted to eat with you, but when I look at you, I can't even swallow my food because you're so beautiful." Hearing this, Bomi's face turned red. She walked closer to Hobin and noticed he was sweating. Hobin explained that he had been sitting in the heat to keep her cool. He apologized for worrying her. Bomi smiled, understanding that he cared for her. They decided to walk in the park after that. While they were walking, Bomi's phone rang. The person on the other end asked if she was out with a boy. Hobin overheard this and felt happy, thinking it made him seem like her boyfriend. After the call ended, Bomi explained that the person who called was an old friend from elementary school. They hadn't spoken in a long time. Hobin found it funny that Bomi's friend was calling now. Bomi then said her old friend went to the same school as Hobin. She mentioned that his name was Moonsong. Hobin was shocked when he heard this. His mind wandered, and he imagined coming home to find Moonsong and Bomi already together, with 2 kids. In his fantasy, Bomi would look at him and ask, "Who are you?" Moonsong would laugh and say, "He's just trying to act cool." The kids would tease Hobin, telling him to stop daydreaming. Hobin woke up of his daydream, feeling like there was a big wall between him and Bomi. He wanted to break down that wall because he liked her so much. He didn't want Bomi to think of him as Moonsong's child. So Hobin told Bomi that he knew Moonsong and was close to him. Bomi seemed happy to hear that. Just then, Moonsong appeared in front of them. Strangely, he was wearing the same clothes as Hobin. Bomi laughed and said, "This is magical." She turned to Moonsong and asked, "You said you're close to Hobin, right?" Moonsong gets confused, looked at Hobin and asked, "Familiar with me?" Hobin kept his head down. He used to speak with confidence, but now he was scared. People like him, who were often bullied, had an unspoken rule. They should not act friendly with anyone. But he broke that rule. He even said he was friends with Munseong. Bomi looked at them. She saw that Hobin and Munseong often faced each other. She asked what they were doing. Hobin was sure he was about to get beaten up. But then, Munseong said that he and Hobin were really close because they were in the same class. Hobin was shocked. Munseong called Hobin by his name. It was clear he didn't really know Hobin, but he knew Hobin was the one in the viral video. He also found it funny that they were wearing the same clothes. Hobin felt happy because Munseong said they were close. They started walking together. As they walked, Hobin felt insecure. He suddenly stopped and made an excuse. He said his toe hurt and that he needed to go home. Then, he walked away. But his foot was fine. He just wanted to leave. Bomi watched Hobin leave. She felt a little sad. She still wanted to spend more time with him. In an alley, Snapper had been secretly recording Hobin all this time. He laughed at Hobin's silly excuse. Viewers watching the video also laughed at Hobin. Snapper caught up to Hobin and asked why he ran away when everything was going well. Hobin lowered his head onto Snapper's shoulder. He felt bad. He knew he was not good enough for Bomi. Snapper told him that dating was like a competition. Men had to fight for a woman's heart. But Hobin was giving up so easily. Snapper then told a story. He said there was a famous basketball coach. One of his players wanted to quit before even playing, but the coach told him to keep going. Snapper reminded Hobin that it was Bomi who had asked him out. She had even picked the cafe. If she didn't like Hobin, she wouldn't have done that. He then asked Hobin to remember Bomi's face when he left. Hobin's eyes filled with tears. He was happy. He hugged Snapper and thanked him. Hobin then made up his mind. He would tell Bomi how he felt. He started walking back to her. But Snapper had tricked him. Snapper had been live streaming everything. The viewers were mad at Snapper. They said he was a bad friend for doing this just to make his stream interesting. Some of them decided to follow Hobin to see what would happen next. Meanwhile, Hobin reached Bomi. He told her he was fine now. Then he said something even more important. He told her that she mattered more than anything. Moonsong, who was still there, said that if a nail hurts, it must be removed. Hobin got scared when he heard that. But Moonsong just meant that he had to go practice. There was a tournament next week. Hobin then realized something. Moonsong and Bomi were not dating. He had misunderstood. He had given up too soon. Before leaving, Moonsong turned to Hobin and said, "You're good at fighting. I'll watch your channel. I saw how you took that punch to reduce damage, and your next move wasn't just luck." Then, Moonsong walked away. Hobin stood there, shocked. How did Moonsong know all that? Now, it was just Hobin and Bomi. Hobin didn't know what to say. But Bomi knew why he had come back. Hobin felt nervous. His legs were shaking. But he forced himself to stay. He asked Bomi what kind of guy she liked. Bomi blushed. She said she liked honest guys. Then she asked Hobin the same question. Hobin wanted to tell her that he liked her. But then he noticed something. Snapper was recording them again. Hobin turned around and grabbed Snapper. When he saw Snapper's face, he was shocked. Snapper had bruises all over. Before Hobin could ask what happened, someone kicked Snapper in the head. Bomi gasped in shock. It was Pago and his gang. They had found Hobin because of the live stream. Pago looked furious. He said he had come to get revenge. Bomi got angry, but Hobin told her to go home. He didn't want her to get hurt. Pago ignored Hobin and looked at Bomi. He demanded her phone number. Bomi refused. Paco got annoyed. He called her an easy girl. Hobin clenched his fists. He was angry, but he remembered what his mentor, the chicken guy, had told him. He shouldn't let himself get provoked so easily. So, Hobin took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. Then Hobin had Paco angry, so he called him bald and held up his middle finger. As expected, Paco got annoyed. He let go of Bomi and threw a punch at Hobin. Hobin tried to block the hit using a trick, but Paco was smarter. He used an uppercut, hitting Hobin right on the chin. Since Paco had already watched Hobin's videos, he knew exactly how to counter his moves. The hit made Hobin feel dizzy, and he fell backward. He remembered what the chicken guy had said. If an opponent knows your moves, they won't work. Right now, Hobin had no idea what to do. He only knew how to take punches in a way that hurt less, but that wasn't enough to win. At that moment, the rain started pouring heavily. Hobin lay on the ground, completely soaked. Suddenly, Paco grabbed him and lifted him up. Hobin thought to himself that getting beaten up wasn't the worst thing. Wounds heal over time, and pain eventually fades. But this time, the pain he felt wasn't just physical. It was something that wouldn't go away so easily. Still, he gathered the strength to beg Paco to let Bomi go. But instead of listening, Paco punched him again. Hobin felt completely useless. He hated how weak he looked in front of the girl he liked. He just wanted everything to be over so Bomi could go home safely. Meanwhile, Bomi desperately wanted to help him, but Paco's friends held her back. Paco then shouted at Hobin, telling him to just admit he was wrong. Hobin didn't want Bomi to see him as weak and scared, but right now, he had no choice. He wanted to end this, so he knelt down and said, "I was wrong." But Paco wasn't satisfied. He thought Hobin's apology wasn't sincere enough. So, he gave Hobin a cruel order. He had to take off his clothes in front of thousands of people watching live. Hobin froze in shock. He didn't move. Meanwhile, Snapper, who was already beaten up, stood there helplessly, unable to do anything. He just followed Paco's orders and kept recording. But the worst part was that Bomi was braver than Hobin. She took a step forward and, without hesitation, slapped Paco across the face. Paco's expression changed instantly. His anger boiled over. He grabbed Bomi by her shirt and ordered Snapper to point the camera at them. But just then, something unexpected happened. Paco was shocked. Hobin had started taking off his pants. He knew he didn't deserve to be called a man, but at this moment, he had no other choice. Standing there in only his underwear, he looked straight at Paco and said, "I have already embarrassed myself. Please let her go." Snapper's eyes filled with tears as he watched this. The viewers on the live stream went wild with excitement. Paco laughed loudly, finding the whole thing amusing. but Bomi couldn't bear to look. She turned her face away, feeling nothing but sadness. Then, to everyone's shock, Hobin reached for his underwear too. In his heart, he whispered goodbye to Bomi. Paco panicked and shouted for him to stop. If Hobin's private part was shown on the livestream, the channel would get blocked. But Hobin didn't care. He kept pulling his underwear down, treating this as his final act of resistance. Just before the worst could happen, Moonsong arrived. Without hesitation, he grabbed Hobin by his pants and lifted him up. Moonsong had seen Paco's livestream and rushed to stop him. Without a word, he walked towards Paco's group, and one by one, took down Paco's friends with powerful punches. Paco, now terrified, tried to beg for mercy. "Wait," he loudly said. But Moonsong was furious. He didn't wait. He threw a strong punch, knocking Paco down to the ground. Once the fight was over, Moonsong turned to Bomi and asked if she was okay. Seeing Moonsong's strength, Hobin felt even worse. He lowered his head in shame. Bomi assured Moonsong that she was fine, and then she told him that Hobin was the one, hurt. Moonsong then told her to leave, but Bomi refused. She took Moonsong's hand and said he needs to help Hobin first. As she walked away, she turned back for one last glance at Hobin. The next morning, the sun was shining brightly, but Hobin was still in the same place, sobbing quietly. He was no longer angry at Pago. Instead, he was angry at himself. He kept asking himself why he was so weak and why his life had to be this way. He felt so frustrated that he wanted to punch himself. Meanwhile, at school, Pago had started live streaming again. But this time, his content had changed. He no longer pretended to be a nice guy. Instead, he had fully embraced his delinquent image. In his new live stream, he showed off his latest fashion style and introduced a special guest, that is Snapper. Snapper, however, had other things on his mind. He kept wondering where Hobin was. It had been an entire week, and Hobin hadn't shown up to school. Deep down, Snapper wanted to apologize to him. But before he could think of a plan, Pago forced him to greet the viewers, leaving Snapper with no choice but to follow along. At the same time, Bomi was working at her part-time job. She had tried calling Hobin many times, but no matter how much she tried, he never picked up. At Hobin's house, a monitor showed the chicken guy's training videos. But Hobin wasn't there. The part of the training being shown was about winning a fight against an ordinary person. The chicken guy talked about motivation and said that all the motivational videos and books from successful people were fake. He explained that success stories are polished and cannot truly change someone. The real motivation comes from inside. It is the anger we feel towards ourselves. Then, the chicken guy explained that the new technique he would teach takes 1 month to master. It matches Hobin's current condition. After hearing this, Hobin immediately started training to become stronger. Hobin had now been absent from school for a whole month. During this time, Rumi was live streaming. Her subscriber count had grown to 100,000. While streaming, she asked Snapper why Hobin hadn't come to school. Snapper replied, maybe he's too embarrassed because he took off his pants in front of a girl. He added that it was a natural punishment for Hobin's actions. Hearing this, Rumi was a little surprised. She thought Snapper was Hobin's friend, but Snapper quickly said, "I was never friends with that fool kid." Then, he offered to join Rumi's team. Just then, Pago arrived. He had heard Snapper talking badly about Hobin. Pago smirked and asked if Snapper wanted to rejoin his team. But when Snapper hesitated, Pago got angry. He punched Snapper hard in the stomach, making him fall to the ground. "You're worse than Hobin," Pago said. "At least Hobin left me and never came back. But you? You keep switching sides whenever it benefits you." Snapper lay there, feeling humiliated. His classmates also whispered about him, calling him a traitor who only follows popular people. Snapper already knew he was disgusting, but he did everything because he wanted to be seen as smart, since he wasn't good at fighting. Meanwhile, Pago started another livestream. Even though Snapper was lying on the ground, Pago's supporters cheered for him. His channel continued growing, and now he had 900,000 subscribers. On the other hand, Hobin's subscriber count kept dropping. His last video was posted a month ago. Still, some people were waiting for his return. One of them was a person named Ding. Ding spoke like an old parent who wanted Paco's channel to reach 1 million subscribers. Paco had an idea. He ordered Snapper to bring Hobin to him by tomorrow. If Snapper succeeded and Paco's channel reached 1 million subscribers, Paco would allow Snapper to rejoin his team. At first, Snapper thought Paco was trash, but after hearing the reward, he smiled and agreed. Right now, the only thing on his mind was survival. Later, Snapper went to the hospital and looked for Hobin's mother. He lied, saying he was Hobin's friend, and asked for Hobin's home address. As he left, he smirked evilly. Tomorrow Hobin will be beaten up by Paco, he thought. But he also knew that if he failed to bring Hobin to school, Paco would punish him instead. So he tried to come up with an excuse. He told Paco that he found Hobin's address, but Hobin wasn't home. Paco didn't care. Instead, he slapped Snapper hard across the face. Then, he gave Snapper a new task: deliver a message to Hobin through Paco's live stream. Snapper thought if he did this, he would finally be free. But when the moment came, instead of telling Hobin to come to school, he said, "Hobin, don't come to school." Paco was furious. Snapper continued, "Paco promised me 500,000 won for this job. But Hobin, if you come to school, Paco will beat you. And as soon as he sees you, he will kill you. So just stay home and hide." Paco, now even angrier, punched Snapper in the face. In the flashback, when Snapper visited Hobin's mother, she greeted him warmly, still believing he was Hobin's friend. She even smiled and shared stories about Hobin. She told Snapper, "Every time Hobin comes home, he talks about you. He says you're his first friend at school. Thanks to you, he felt happy and motivated." Snapper was shocked. At that moment, something changed in him. He no longer wanted to betray Hobin. But it was too late. Paco had already beaten him badly, and now no one was there to help him. On Paco's livestream, he gave a direct order: "Hobin, come to school." It turned out that Hobin was watching the livestream at that very moment. He saw Snapper on the screen, repeatedly telling him not to come. The video quickly became viral. Snapper, who was barely conscious, was shocked when he saw Hobin watching the live stream. Meanwhile, Paco was thrilled. He laughed and shouted, "Hobin has started his live streaming again." Then, he handed the phone to Snapper and ordered him to steam, as he would announce that Viral Hit is back. Then, he started walking towards Paco and said, "I'll show you how to fight." The audience was left speechless. Snapper, who was nervously holding the camera, was told by Hobin to stop shaking it. Hobin had written on his palm, "He has predicted already that, if he says so, Paco will beat him up." Hobin's prediction came true when Paco saw him and tried to land a punch. Hobin used a method to avoid getting hurt, and it worked. But Snapper, watching them, felt the technique wouldn't work anymore. Paco seemed confident it wouldn't affect him. He threw another punch. Hobin remembered a video he watched, where his martial arts teacher, the NewTube chicken, explained how to fight. The chicken said that if you don't want to get hurt by a punch, an uppercut could break that defense. Only foolish people keep blocking like that. Hobin felt foolish and regretted his situation, but he thought that if he didn't keep going, he wouldn't be able to pay his hospital bills. Life felt miserable. But then Hobin remembered the chicken's advice. He had watched part 2 of the chicken's videos, where the chicken shared tips on how to beat ordinary people. He emphasized 3 important things needed to fight: weight, determination, and stamina. The first was weight. Weight was crucial in fighting, but it wasn't just about eating a lot. It had to be gained in the right way. Hobin tried to drink a strange-looking juice recommended by the chicken guy. While supplements were a quicker way to gain weight, they were expensive, so Hobin opted for the juice. The second thing was determination. Without strong willpower, you wouldn't gain weight, even if you drank the juice. But weight gain wasn't just about food. It also needed to be absorbed by the body, so exercise was important. Hobin started working out. The third thing was stamina. The chicken advised swimming to build stamina, as swimming could increase endurance better than anything else. Hobin tried swimming, even though it was exhausting. After a month of following the chicken's advice, Hobin didn't see much change in his weight. But then the chicken explained the next crucial thing: technique. He shared a story about Mike Tyson, who once said that when a beginner fights, the most important things are money, skill, as well as technique. Mike Tyson then taught the first technique: a low kick. To do this, you stand with your feet shoulder-width apart, plant one foot firmly on the floor, and shift your body's weight to one leg while letting the other leg relax. You then move your body as if you're about to spin backward. Hobin practiced this technique, and before Paco could land his punch, Hobin kicked him first. To Hobin's surprise, it worked. The technique had a real impact. But Paco laughed at Hobin, saying that Hobin should have kicked him in the thigh, not the shin. The viewers too were embarrassed, thinking Hobin had learned from the wrong teacher. However, a viewer named Ding defended Hobin, saying that what Hobin did was actually a new version of the low kick technique, called a calf kick. This kick, when done correctly, could cause tremendous damage with just one hit. Hobin tried the kick again, and this time, Paco winced in pain. Meanwhile, Moonsong, who was watching Hobin's live stream, was impressed. He didn't expect Hobin's kick to be so powerful. Even UFC fighters would lose their balance if hit by such a kick. Paco, frustrated, charged at Hobin. But Hobin remembered the chicken's advice. When the opponent is far away, it's better to run as well as keep your distance. Hobin jumped up and down, maintaining the right distance. Paco, still in pain, was frustrated. Snapper and the other viewers were fascinated by Hobin's skills. They couldn't understand why Hobin wasn't attacking again. Moonsong thought that Hobin had figured out the timing perfectly. Paco, now aware of Hobin's moves, tried to block the next kick. He knew Hobin was going to use the calf kick again, so he prepared to defend it. However, Hobin surprised everyone by landing an overhand right punch straight to Paco's face. It was a clean hit, and it showed that Hobin had been training his punches all month. When Hobin first started high school, he had someone to talk to. But one day, Paco kicked him in the head for no reason. As Hobin lay on the ground, Paco kept stepping on him. Since that day, Hobin became a coward. He was so scared of Paco that he didn't even dare to curse him in his mind. But now, things were different. With a strong punch, Hobin shouted, "I'm not weak!" Paco was thrown against a locker. The other students watching were shocked. The room fell silent. No cheers, no boos. Only the sound of Hobin's breathing. Paco's friends rushed over, angry as well as ready to take revenge. But Snapper stepped in front of Hobin and warned them not to touch his friend. He threatened them, saying if they tried anything, he would insult their mothers. For some reason, his words scared them, and they hesitated. Behind them, Moonsong and Snapper watched. Moonsong noticed that Paco's friends had lost their confidence. He told them not to do anything, unless they wanted to be beaten too. Hobin stood there looking down. Moonsong then placed a hand on Hobin's shoulder. He knew Hobin was crying, so he comforted him, saying Hobin was cool and that he didn't need to cry anymore. Hobin cried. Not because he was sad, but because he was happy. He had finally stopped being weak. After wiping his tears, Hobin shouted, "Don't forget to subscribe and like." The next day, Paco didn't come to school. Hobin didn't blame him completely. He thought Paco wasn't afraid of school itself, but afraid of his image being ruined. Some students were happy about Paco getting beaten, while others kept rewatching the fight. Even Paco's YouTube subscribers started moving to Hobin's channel. Hobin's subscribers grew to 150,000. Reaching over 100,000 subscribers earned him a silver play button. He went live to celebrate, thanking his viewers and even bowing down in gratitude. He promised to keep improving and jokingly lifted his leg, showing he was ready for the next challenge. Later, the scene opened at the hospital. Hobin gave his mom a new shirt. She was worried about the money he spent. Hobin told her it was cheap from the market, but in reality, it cost 2.1 million won. His mother then mentioned that a friend Hobin had talked about before was visiting him. Hobin thought it might be Moonsong, but then realized that was unlikely. There was only one other person who would visit him. As soon as he left the room, Snapper was waiting for him. Snapper was upset that Hobin referred to Moonsong as his friend. He hit Hobin in frustration, but Hobin used his technique to avoid feeling pain. Seeing this, Snapper couldn't stay mad and just smiled. Then, at Snapper's house, they discussed growing Hobin's channel. Snapper suggested they hire an editor. Hobin was surprised because Snapper had been editing everything so far. But Snapper admitted he was just average. A professional editor could make even bad content look good. Hobin agreed and started a live stream with the theme, "Looking for an editor." Many people commented, introducing themselves and sharing their experiences. But instead of talking about editing, they shared their sad life stories. Hobin whispered, saying these people didn't seem like editors. Unfortunately, the viewers heard him and got angry. Hobin quickly asked if anyone actually knew how to edit. A viewer named Ding said he was pretty good at editing. However, Snapper's parents were against accepting him right away. But Hobin convinced them to at least give Ding a chance. Other viewers also agreed, so they couldn't refuse. However, they decided to interview Ding first. The next day, Snapper asked if Hobin had talked to the editor yet. Hobin admitted he hadn't, but he had checked his profile, which looked old-fashioned. They then discussed where to hold the interview. Snapper said Ding's parents were strict and probably wouldn't let him go far. Just then, a voice interrupted them. Hobin jokingly said he was scared the old man might suddenly appear and talk too much. But when they turned to look, they were shocked. To their surprise, it wasn't a man at all. Instead, a beautiful woman stood in front of them. Snapper and Hobin were completely stunned. This woman was going to be their future editor. Yul-ga was famous in school for being cute, but her reputation was not very good. Some students even bullied her. People said she was cute, but not when she spoke. Since she had lived in another country for years, her Korean was not perfect. She learned it online from an old people's site. Snapper asked if she was the one using that old man's account. He laughed at her and told her that her Korean was bad. He said that was why people gave her a hard time. She was just a high school girl, but she spoke like an old lady. Yul-ga asked if they were going to interview her, but Snapper laughed more. He called her an old lady in a school uniform and said she was not that cute. Yul-ga grabbed his finger and told him not to wave it in front of her like that. Snapper looked at her and suddenly started daydreaming. In his dream, he came home from work, tired, and his wife, Yul-ga, was waiting for him. He gave her flowers, and she became very happy. Then, their dog spoke and told him to get up. The dog had a leash around its neck that said Hobin. He got back to reality when Yul-ga woke him up, asking for an interview. Snapper insisted Hobin hire Yul-ga without an interview, but Hobin wanted to check Yul-ga's talent. So Yul-ga showed them an edited video, and Snapper stared at her. He thought she was so beautiful and even admired her small fingers. Yul-ga told Hobin that he had reached 500,000 subscribers, and so he needed an intro. She showed him a design she made. Snapper agreed and said it was perfect. Hobin told him to shut up. Yul-ga wanted to start the interview quickly, so she added good options and details to the video. Hobin was surprised but watched her edited video. He was amazed by how well it was made. Viewers commented that the video was fun and well edited. The views increased a lot, but it was still not enough for him to hire her. So he asked her which part was the hardest to edit. Yul-ga pointed at a part where hair was sticking out from his underwear. She said she struggled to edit it and finally had to blur it. Hobin was shocked. Then she took the phone from him and pointed out a stain on his underwear. She said she had added an overlay for that too. Hobin got embarrassed and snatched the phone from her. He then told her that she has been hired. Then, he asked why she thought she chose to work with him. She could have worked with other YouTubers. She smiled, and we saw a flashback when she was leaving. She saw Hobin and Paco fighting. Many students watched the fight. Some called Hobin a loser and said he would get beaten up again. But this time, things felt different. Hobin looked ready to fight. He was angry because Paco had disrespected his mom. From that moment, Yul-ga became his fan. She started watching all his videos, commenting and tuning into his live streams. She really liked him. Back to the present, she reached out her hand and said they would make a great team. Snapper shook hands with her first and said he felt the same. Then, they announced on his YouTube channel that they had found an editor. Bomi, who watched all this, felt sad. She guessed Hobin did not want to talk to him. After that, a crowd outside a gaming area grabbed her attention. She thought it was not just a school fight. It looked serious. But she got shocked as she saw 4 guys lying on the ground, beaten up. Bomi wondered who had defeated them all. Just then, one of the beaten guys walked over to a student playing a game and kicked him. He asked if he was the one who messed with his crew. At first, the student ignored him. But after losing his game, he turned around and asked for $500. His name was Tae-hun Seong. He was 18 years old and from Gangbuk High School. He used to be part of Max FC, a dangerous organization, but they kicked him out because of his anger issues. Then the scene shifted to Snapper, who said this guy was called Crazy Tahu, because he had beaten up almost every kid in school. Hobin was impressed, but asked why Snapper was showing him this. Snapper asked if he could guess what martial art Tae-hun used. Hobin said it looked like boxing. Snapper laughed and said it was actually taekwondo. He mocked the weak kids at Tahu's school for losing to him. Hobin was confused. He asked what was so bad about taekwondo. He thought taekwondo could help in fights. Snapper explained that Olympic-style taekwondo was not very effective in real fights, but real taekwondo was different. It was powerful. Yul-ga explained that a study had measured the speed and force of different martial arts kicks. Taekwondo had the fastest and most powerful kicks. Snapper did not believe it, but Yul-ga confirmed it. Hobin asked why all this mattered. Snapper finally told him the truth. Tae-hun was the next bully he had to fight. Hobin was shocked. He thought this was crazy. Fighting a school bully was one thing, but fighting a trained fighter was something else. Yul-ga said one of their subscribers had requested the fight. Taekwondo was so powerful that even UFC champions used it. A YouTube clip showed Mike Tyson talking about Taekwondo kicks. He said they were impressive but too flashy. However, there was one Taekwondo move that even scared him: the spinning back kick. This move was famous for its speed, power, and accuracy. Fighters who got hit by it often lost instantly. A Taekwondo fighter in a tournament used this kick, and his opponent was terrified. Seeing this, Hobin panicked. He thought there was no way he could fight someone like that. Hobin decided he would not fight. He said it was impossible. Snapper asked if he wanted to disappoint his subscribers. Hobin checked again, and realized that getting hit by a back kick could be deadly. He had no idea what to do. But then, he remembered he had a trick up his sleeve. The scene changed, and a guy talked about the high school bully from Gangbok. He told everyone to keep his identity a secret. He said there was a really evil guy in his school named Tae-hun Seong. Tae-hun was crazy and well known because he used to play Taekwondo. But for some reason, he quit. The guy explained that Tae-hun was truly evil. If he wanted something, he got it no matter what. If he wanted rare shoes, like the DG and Nike collab, he took them. He was not like other bullies. Instead of going after one person, he went after their friends. He did not really want things for himself. He wanted to make others feel helpless and embarrassed. Hobin is scared. He did not know how to fight someone like that. People in the comments called him scared. He also heard that Tae-hun could kick so high that people's heads got knocked back. Hobin felt it was unfair. But the snapper told him to keep his promise to his viewers. Hobin said he wanted to make a video about bullies, not fight a professional fighter. The snapper said he did not care because he was not interested in fighting. Then Yul-ga stood up and said she would teach the bully a lesson. Then the scene changed to Tae-hun, who talked about wanting to get rich. Suddenly, the same guys Tae-hun beat up in the gaming area earlier appeared. A guy asked, "Are you the one my friend told to go get him?" That was why he came. He warned Tae-hun nobody escaped after messing with his friend. The guy's name was Pan-hyuk Woo. In a flash, Tae-hun kicked a guy standing next to Pan-hyuk. Pan-hyuk asked if it was Taekwondo. Meanwhile, Tae-hun questioned him if they had $500 because he wanted to play arcade games. Pan-hyuk began making fun of Tae-hun. He laughed and said the guy only knew a little about martial arts. He said pro athletes were a joke. He thought Taekwondo was useless. He asked how it could be called a martial art when they could not even grab or take down an opponent. He believed real fighting needed grabbing and beating. That way, the opponent would lose. But then, Tae-hun charged in at full speed. The guy was shocked at how fast he was. Tae-hun kicked him in the face, and he realized Tae-hun's footwork was impressive. The guy wondered if Tae-hun would kick again. He prepared to block and counterattack. First, Tae-hun moved his left leg in, but instead of kicking with his left, he used his right. Soon, Pan-hyuk's friend appeared. He was shocked to see him getting beaten up so badly and easily. Pan-hyuk began begging Tae-hun to stop. Then Tae-hun asked if he had $500. The guy quickly said yes and offered to give it right away. But Tae-hun said he was not talking to him. He looked at his friend instead. The friend panicked. The guy he brought with him was already on his knees, begging. The friend also said he had $500 and offered to give it immediately. He swore never to bother Tae-hun again. Then Tae-hun kicked Pan-hyuk and asked him his friend if he had $500 for the arcade. The man said yes. Then Tae-hun kicked Pan-hyuk again and asked if he had 5,000,000 won. The man finally understood what was happening. Tae-hun was just having fun. He said the Pan-hyuk's friend was not giving him 5,000,000 won, so he kept kicking Pan-hyuk. The guy cried and begged for forgiveness. But it seemed like Tae-hun enjoyed seeing people feel helpless rather than actually wanting money. Meanwhile, the snapper recorded everything. The guy watching thought it was insane. He had never seen anything like it before. Instead of attacking the person who fought, Tae-hoon went after his friend. Suddenly, Tae-hoon looked at him. He felt like he barely escaped. Snapper realized they had to be more careful. Then we saw Hobin, who told him it was good that he was working alone and updating him, but he needed to be careful next time. Then, out of nowhere, Tae-hoon appeared. Hobin wondered why Snapper called him when he got caught. Tae-hoon asked why Snapper was filming him. Snapper got scared and began complimenting Tae-hoon's taekwondo skills. Hobin believed they would escape that way. He still had not decided if he would fight Tae-hoon or not. To him, Tae-hoon was a monster. He believed he was not the main character of some action story seeking revenge. He just wanted to get rid of bullies, not fight them. Suddenly, Eul-ga rushed in and shouted, "Who dared to kidnap my boys?" Hobin hoped she would slap Tae-hoon like Hobin slapped another person before. Eul-ga started getting nervous. She realized Tae-hoon was a bully. She began playing with a rock, and the guys thought the girl was just like them. After that, 3 of them lined up. Tae-hoon asked if they were recording him. The 3 nodded their head and said Hobin assured him they would delete the video. Tae-hoon did not care if they deleted it. He recognized them as viral NewTubers and told them he just wanted their YouTube channel. Hearing that, Hobin was shocked. Then he remembered what someone had told him. He thought Tae-hoon was like other bullies, but he was wrong. Instead of attacking one person, Tae-hoon targeted their friend. Then, Tae-hoon started going after the snapper. Eul-ga stood frozen in fear. Hobin was feeling helpless. Then Tae-hoon turned to Hobin and asked if he had $500.